Thanks for tuning into this week's edition of the Climate Friday newsletter, our first one of the month of August. Meteorologist John Burchfield here, whether you're joining on YouTube, WTOL 11+, or on our website. Good to have you here. We've got new content each and every Friday on climate change and how it pertains to you, your wallet, and the environment. This week, we're going to be recapping July. Boy, was it a rainy month. We saw numerous rounds of downpours and thunderstorms. In addition to the rain, we're also going to be talking about the wildfire smoke. It's been a persistent theme of the summertime season. The Canadian wildfires still impacting our weather here at home. We'll talk about the rain and the smoke and what you can expect going forward. And if you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe at WTOL.com/email for the latest Climate Friday newsletters. Let's break down the graphics and the science as we recap July and also get into the wildfire smoke and the effects that it may continue to have on the remainder of the summer. Let's start things off with the rainfall. Boy, was it a wet month of July. That is the best way to describe it. We got nearly half a foot of rainfall. Of course, that's at the Toledo Express Airport with 5.75 inches. Some of you saw even more than that. Areas like Hillsdale County got inundated with even more than half a foot of rainfall. We are 2.5 inches above average for the month of July. In other words, about double what we should have gotten during the month. Many area farmers, though, still saying things are okay, and the rainfall and the dry periods balancing each other out quite nicely. With that amount of rainfall, this was the 12th wettest July on record. Number one on top of that list. Can you imagine 9 inches of rainfall during a July? Well, we weren't quite that high, but still number 12 atop the list of the wettest Julys on record in Toledo. Here is that list. 2006, 9.19 inches of rainfall during the month of July alone. A number of other Julys featured over half a foot of rainfall, including 1969 and 1958, and way back to 1896, where those weather records date back to the late 19th century, and a more recent one, 1992. So no, we weren't near the top of the list, but still number 12 with how much rainfall that we experienced this July. Now, this has really been a summer of feast or famine. Of course, after a wet July, we had a very dry May into June with 21 consecutive days with no measurable rainfall. You may remember that historic dry stretch late May into June. We saw 3 straight weeks without a single drop of measurable rainfall. So what about rain going forward? We've had a dry start to the month of August. However, this weekend could be seeing some stronger storms and downpours. That'll be Sunday into Monday, and the WTOL 11 weather team will keep you updated on the specific hour-by-hour timing. But I want to give you a first look as we watch a warm front that'll move on through, and that front could bring us some lighter rain showers Sunday morning. All the heavier stuff, though, it's going to be later on in the day. Sunday evening, as we are in the warm sector, feeling a very muggy setting with some downpours possible. And you'll notice all the heavier stuff likely to be across Illinois and Indiana. As that cold front inches closer on Monday, could see another round of downpours and some thunderstorms to start off the work week. Be sure to check that WTOL 11 weather app, as it is going to be a bit stormy and unsettled to start off the work week. So that's the rain. Let's talk about the Canadian wildfire smoke now. We have seen impairment to air quality throughout the week as that Canadian smoke continues to be here in the atmosphere. At first, it was thousands of feet up in the sky, but it did make its way down to the ground level. We saw air quality indices over 90, and in some spots they got up to triple digits on Thursday. That is the level that is unhealthy for sensitive groups. In other words, the very young and elderly and those with respiratory conditions might want to minimize that time outdoors when the AQI or air quality index does climb that high. And just to refresh your memory on the AQI scale, ideally you want it in that green good zone. That is between 0 and 50. We were in the moderate zone, closer to 100, and unhealthy territory starts to be in that 100 to 150. You may remember earlier this summer, we got over 200, and that is very unhealthy. And if you recall those amazing photos of New York City, their air quality index was close to 400 in the incredibly hazardous category. Finally turning less hazy on Friday. If you're watching this Climate Friday video on Friday, you're probably seeing a little more blue in the sky as a weak cold front finally clears out the rest of that Canadian wildfire smoke. Here's the timing. That front's going to sift in from the north, and the blue color on this weather map, that shows you lower concentrations of wildfire smoke and more blue in the sky. All of that smoke is going to shift off to the east and southeast, shown by those yellow colors, as that cold front finally advances and clears us out. So what's the latest on these wildfires? In other words, where is the smoke coming from and why have they not been put out quite yet? So far this year, this is the most burn area in Canadian history. 32 million acres of land have burned. To give you an idea of just how vast that is the size of North Carolina, that burn area. Incredibly massive, close to the size of Ohio as well. That is the record, and it nearly doubles the previous record of the most burn area in one single year. What about the United States? Well, we have seen some wildfires, but that number is only about 1 million, as we've seen some fires out in California, Nevada, and Arizona as well. But if you think about the size of the burn area in the USA versus Canada, most of that smoke, at least this year in particular, is coming from the Canadian prairies, where those fires are still ablaze. The USA has had wildfire issues of its own, in particular out west in California, but that has not quite escalated as much this year. The jet stream is a conveyor belt that guides our weather, and the jet stream is responsible for bringing that smoke from Canada to here in the Midwest in Ohio and Michigan. Whenever we get a northwesterly wind direction, that carries the smoke in our direction. So why have these fires not been put out quite yet? Well, a number of those fires are in remote areas, so getting a crew there to extinguish them is much more easier said than done. It's difficult, and it's often hard to access the routes and the locations of those wildfires. Also, it's often like playing a game of whack-a-mole. In other words, you put out one fire and another one develops, and it's a self-perpetuating deal where you get additional fires that spawn just the minute one gets put out. Additionally, not enough firefighters. With 32 million acres of burning land, there's just not enough firefighters to go around, and the country of Canada is trying very hard to put these out, but simply not having enough manpower to get all of them extinguished. And last but not least, human life is the #1 priority, and the reality is, even though the smoke is an inconvenience, some of these fires are in such remote areas that they're not posing an imminent threat to people's homes, to buildings and offices. And those fires, well, so to speak, get put on the back burner a little bit. It is mainly the fires that are posing an imminent threat to human life, those ones in more metropolitan or populated areas, those are the ones that get treated first. And because human life is the #1 priority, some of those fires in more remote areas not getting addressed quite as promptly. Sadly, those wildfires are going to continue to be a story for the rest of the summer, even though we get a little bit of reprieve from the smoke. And as far as the July rainfall goes, August has been a little more dry to start things off, but we do have weekend rain and storm chances. Be sure to check that WTOL 11 weather app for the latest and subscribe for next week's Climate Friday newsletter. See you then.